guys, Nick here. Welcome to my Suicide Squad non-spoiler review. My thoughts on the brand new DC film Suicide Squad, directed by David Ayer, starring Margot Robbie, Will Smith, Jared Leto, Joel Kinnaman, Viola Davis, as well as a whole great cast of characters. And I want to preface my review by bringing up something that obviously has been the topic of discussion since the review embargo for the film lifted the other day. And obviously it's history is kind of repeating itself in the way that critics are responding to Suicide Squad in the way that they have with Batman vs Superman. Not quite as much hate towards Suicide Squad as there was with Batman vs Superman, but still a lot of critics just do not like this movie. A great number of people do not like this movie, but that doesn't stop me from wanting to go into the movie with an open mind. And you guys know me. You guys know I loved Batman vs Superman, the theatrical cut as well as the Ultimate Edition that was released not too long ago. And I've been looking forward to the Suicide Squad all year, so I was not about to let critics who really aren't fans of the material to begin with, let them affect my enjoyment of the movie. And so I just came out of seeing the movie a little bit ago, and I'm here to say this: with its flaws, Suicide Squad is not a perfect movie, but I enjoyed the hell out of this movie. As a DC fan, I was so thoroughly entertained, and just overall, I felt that even again with its flaws, I had so much fun with this movie. From Will Smith's Deadshot to Harley Quinn to El Diablo, even to Killer Croc. So many of these characters that just I had so much fun just watching these characters and this group of characters interacting with each other and going on this mission to I'm not trying to spoil anything, but they have a mission and they're all brought together. And that's one thing about this movie that I thought was kind of interesting. The movie starts and immediately it's Viola Davis and Amanda Waller bringing this team in together. So that's why I was like, oh, there's no real setup. Well, okay. And something about this movie that's a little interesting too is the way that they decided to tell its story. And in the beginning, they introduced the squad, almost have like character cards for every single squad member who's introduced. So it's like Harley Quinn, and they give details about Harley Quinn, and the Deadshot details about Deadshot. So it's like that with pretty much every single squad member. So I thought that was definitely an interesting way to introduce us to the characters, and in a movie format, because it's easy to do that with trailers and marketing material. But they did that in the movie, and I'm like, oh, that's definitely something I haven't seen before. So that was something I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. I'm not gonna sit here and complain oh, there's including stuff in the trailers in the movie. I didn't mind that. And overall, I just feel like this movie brought a sense of lightness to the DC extended universe that a lot of people thought was lacking in Batman vs Superman. But to me, Batman vs Superman almost needed to be that dark. And this is going to be a bit of a spoiler for Batman vs Superman, but for most of you who are seeing Suicide Squad, you guys have already seen the movie. Because of Superman's death at the end of Batman vs Superman, the world is kind of in a state of now what are we going to do? And that's something that that was addressed in the movie. It's Superman's dead, and we need a way to defend ourselves, and that's how the government and Amanda Waller are, and that's how they are in when we see them at the beginning of the movie. So she wants to set this team of metahumans because of Superman's death, and because ultimately Superman was on the government side, and Superman did represent kind of the world. And now that he's gone, it's well, now who are we gonna have to defend us? Who's not and so that's where Amanda Waller comes up with this. So that's where certain people's criticism of Batman vs Superman being too dark. I think everything in Batman vs Superman almost needed to happen for this universe to move forward in a lighter tone. And again, I love Batman vs Superman, and I don't mind its darkness. I did like how that was handled. And for me, just seeing that and seeing the progression of this universe to Suicide Squad, I thought it was a very natural progression. And while there's things that are certainly more fantastical in this movie than they were necessarily in Man of Steel or Batman vs Superman, it still feels very much the same universe, especially when we have small cameos from Batman, and we do have the Joker around, obviously, and the Joker plays not as much of a role as you might think he does, but a role nonetheless. And again, just this film, some of my favorite bits of this movie were just the character interactions between just the squad itself. from Batman, or no, not from Batman, from Deadshot and Harley Quinn to Deadshot and Rick Flag, and to Harley. Harley, I think, is going to be everyone's standout character in this movie, because Margot Robbie perfectly comes into the role, and you just believe her as Harley Quinn, and it's just, you feel like she's really stepping off the page of the comic book and from the from the animated show. And that's one thing I thought was really cool, because they nod to the comics, but then also are creating something different. Like Harley's relationship with the Joker is still thriving from when it started. And they do, again, it's pretty much straight from the comics, from Harley Quinn's origin to where her relationship is with the Joker, and kind of like where they are with Batman. That's where this movie makes me so happy, because it's honoring its comic book, its comic book source, and it's just seeing, being a DC fan for so many years, I've been waiting for a movie like this for a long time that can be ridiculous and can be over the top, but also still just be fun, and honoring its comic book lore, and just give me an enjoyable movie just to watch as a whole. But obviously, like I said, this movie does have its flaws in that, some of the biggest problems for me were just, again, some scenes were a little jarring, like editing was a little off in certain bits, but nothing too bad, at least for me, in my opinion. And the villain, I thought, was really, really, really underutilized, and for a character, I'm not going to spoil who it was, but for the character who I thought was been marketed really great, I feel like it was such a letdown for me, because there's no build up to the villain, there's no sympathizing with the villain just kind of there. It's like, oh, I'm bad, and it's just like, oh, okay, so that's it, and the villain essentially does nothing throughout the entire movie, and even in the final battle, that's when the villain kind of does something, and that's when I was disappointed as a fan, like for people who've criticized the movie, I'll give them the villain was a disappointment, I'll give them that, but overall, that was pretty much it. And there's one scene that involves Harley Quinn. That's not her fault. It's just what happens to her character when she's rescued by a certain someone, and he does something, and I'm like, whoa, that's really out of character. So I'm not sure if that was a moment where I was seeing from Harley Quinn's perspective, or if that actually happened. I was really, really, really confused in that moment. But other than that, Suicide Squad, I think, was a really, really great watch for me, and I walked out of the theater really, really satisfied as a DC fan. And there are cameos in this movie that I initially wasn't expecting, but the internet being the internet, I was spoiled. But even then, just seeing cameos from certain DC characters, and just this movie being such a DC and just a comic book movie in general, I loved it. And it started out with me, I didn't love the beginning of this movie, but overall, again, I really like where this movie ended. Definitely setting itself up for a sequel. And I think, again, the biggest strength of this movie is the characters in the squad itself. And just big standouts for me certainly were, El Diablo, I think, was the biggest, one of the biggest standouts for me, other than Harley Quinn. Deadshot, from Will Smith, was definitely a great character. And I was expecting nothing but greatness from Will Smith. And people have problems with Will Smith as an actor, because sometimes people feel like he's too full of himself. And while that can be the case in certain movies, I thought in this movie he really worked. You really understood where he was coming from as a character, and why he made certain decisions, and where he ultimately ends up at the end of the movie. You really feel for his character. And going back to El Diablo, I think El Diablo, the way they set him up, and people were upset that he was racially stereotyped as being a gangbanger and stuff like that. It's a movie, get over it. I mean, I understand, we don't want, racial stereotypes in movies. I get it. Trust me, I get it. And just racism, and the way the movies in general handle race is a very tricky thing. And it's definitely a tricky subject to bring up. But in this movie, I still feel for the character, and why he ultimately feels afraid of himself and his actions. I completely understand where he's coming from. So in that aspect, I really, really enjoy where the character goes with his emotional journey throughout the movie, even though it's not a main focal point in the movie. I really like how his character was utilized, and where the character ultimately ends up. I was really just emotionally attached to this character. So by the end of the movie, I'm just like El Diablo was a really big standout for me. And probably a lot of people's questions is like, oh, like, how big is the Joker's role in this movie? The Joker is really more of like a background character. He has nothing to do with the main plot. Just his relationship with Harley, like his only attachment to the squad is Harley, and you'll see what I mean by that in the movie, because their relationship, like, there's no point in the movie where they're ever really broken up, if that's kind of a spoiler, but just where he is in the movie, he's kind of like following the squad a bit, and there's no real confrontation between the squad and Joker, so I guess that's kind of a spoiler, but he does play a role in this, but it's pretty much all revolved around Harley, and I think Jared Leto showed that, you know, this is obviously a different interpretation of the Joker. He's still really creepy. He still feels like the Joker. The whole tattooed gangster vibe, you know, you do get from him, but at the same time, you still feel like it's the Joker. And I'm just more excited than anything just to see this version of the Joker interact with Ben Affleck's Batman. And again, I'm just really excited for this whole DC Extended Universe moving forward. So yeah, those are my non-spoiler thoughts on Suicide Squad. And to give a rating out of 10, I used to not like doing the whole rating system, because I think the rating system is kind of flawed, because, like, more than anything, you guys go see the movie for yourself, form your own opinion. You can listen to my opinion, but still form your own opinion, and don't let the thoughts of others dictate how you feel about a movie. Because I can sit here and say, you know, like, I love the movie, but you might not walk out of the movie feeling the same way that I did. But so overall, again, just experience the movie for yourself, experience the movies in general for yourself, form your own opinion, and don't rely on the opinions of others, and don't bash the opinions of others unless they're being, you know, like, racist, sexist, you know, or just being like a terrible person. But overall, again, I would give this movie an 8 out of 10. Again, it has its flaws. The villain was really underutilized, and I didn't like how the villain was used. Certain scenes in the beginning kind of threw me off, but overall, I was really, really excited for the movie. I'm probably gonna see it a couple times or more at least. Again, just from the cameos, just the way how this movie ends, and just the whole team vibe, and just seeing characters like, you know, like Captain Boomerang and Katana, and characters who are really just obviously very comic book characters who you wouldn't think necessarily would work in live action. Captain Boomerang works. Jai Courtney, I think this is probably one of Jai Courtney's better roles, because Jai Courtney he doesn't have to put on like this like male machismo facade that he kind of had to do with like Terminator and like the Die Hard movie he was in. So in this, he feels like you forget that it's Jai Courtney, and you're like, oh, like that's Captain Boomerang. So, and like even with Katana, like Katana was a character that she was like a very quiet character, a very almost lonely character because of what she's been through as a character. And she does speak Japanese throughout the movie. Like, she speaks English here and there, but she speaks almost nothing but Japanese. And I like that, because that's something that, you know, showing like racial diversity. And I like seeing that in movies, especially in DC movies. And I think that's something that, you know, I'm really proud of in DC. They're giving light to their racially diverse characters, or something I think Marvel needs to do more of, instead of having them as side characters. Like having Rhodey almost being there, just kind of like, I don't know, just kind of be there just for Tony Stark's man-pan. I think a lot of these characters do shine on their own. Are there certain stereotypes for these characters? Yes, I'll give it that. But I think that these characters become more than just a stereotype for me. I think these characters become something more than what they are at face level. So overall, again, I really, really, really enjoyed this movie. I can easily say I love this movie. I'm gonna see it again. I would say go out and see it for yourself. Don't let the critic reviews, throw you off. If you're gonna enjoy the movie, you're gonna enjoy the movie. Otherwise, just go out and enjoy the movie for yourself. Don't let what anyone else say dictate your opinion. So that's gonna be it for me. So if you guys like what you see here, go ahead and hit the like button and hit that subscribe button below. I review content all the time. I'm gonna have a spoiler review up in the next couple of days once everyone else has seen the movie. Again, I have content like this on my channel. I do trailer reviews, TV show reviews. This fall, I'm going to be reviewing Supergirl, The Flash, Star Wars Rebels, and Legend of Tomorrow, and anything else I might think about reviewing this fall. But at the moment, that's all I have. You guys can also follow me on social media. You guys can follow me at NerdyNick95 on Twitter, True Man of Steel on Tumblr, and you can obviously subscribe to my YouTube channel here at Nerdy Nick. So that's going to be it for me. So until next time, guys, have a good one.